Have you ever wanted to know how far you walked around a city block? Perhaps you've needed to calculate the total distance around a building. Or maybe you wanted to know how much wood is needed to make a picture frame. These all involve computing something called perimeter. What exactly is perimeter? How do you find perimeter? At other times, you may have wanted to calculate something called area. And what exactly is area? And how is it computed? During the next few minutes, we're going to answer these questions and others as we investigate perimeter and area. If you've ever run around the outside of a soccer field, you have experience with perimeter. What exactly is perimeter? Perimeter is the distance around a figure or an object. The distance around this field makes up quite a large perimeter, whereas this piece of paper has a much smaller perimeter. Knowing the perimeter of certain things can be quite useful. For example, in rebuilding a fence around this sheep pasture, it's important to know the perimeter so we know how much lumber to buy. Or it's important to know the perimeter of this room when putting up molding so we know how much to cut. Let's now take a look at how to calculate perimeter. You're probably familiar with units of distance and length. For example, you describe the distance you run in units called miles or kilometers. Or you describe the length of a room in units of feet or meters. Or the width of small objects, such as this shell, in units of inches or centimeters. We need to work with units of length to calculate perimeter. Calculating the perimeter of polygons, which are figures with 3 or more sides, is easy. To find the perimeter of a polygon, such as this rectangular room, all we need to do is measure all the sides and then add them together. The formula for calculating the perimeter of a rectangle is perimeter equals length plus width plus width. Using a measuring tape, we find this particular room has a length of 16 feet on both sides and a width of 14 feet on both sides. When we add all these up, we find the perimeter of the room to be 60 feet. In another example, we can quickly find the perimeter of this square piece of paper using a metric ruler. We find one side to have a length of 20 centimeters. You decide. What's the perimeter of the square piece of paper? Since the paper is square, all 4 sides are the same length of 20 centimeters, and when added together, its perimeter is 80 centimeters. You've probably used the word area to describe the place where you play, live, or work. In mathematics, area has a specific meaning. Area is the amount of square units a figure or a place covers. For example, this piece of graph paper is covered with many small squares that, when totaled, make up its area. Even when a figure is not specifically covered by squares, it still has an area, as does this field and this wall. Let's now see how we can calculate area. Let's say you need to figure out how much carpet is needed to cover the floor of this room before you go to the store to buy it. In order to do this, you first need to calculate the area of the floor the carpet will cover. In a rectangular room, you need to measure the length and width of the room. Then, all you need to do is multiply these two measurements. Area equals length times width, or A equals L times W. Using a tape measure, we find the room to have a length of 28 feet and a width of 34 feet. Using our formula where area equals length times width, we multiply 28 feet by 34 feet and get an area of 952 square feet. This is pretty simple. The only thing that may be confusing are the units used to describe area. Common units for area for medium-sized places are square feet, square yards, and square meters. These are often written by the units to the second power, or feet squared, yards squared, or meters squared. The area of our room is 952 square feet, so we need to buy 952 square feet of carpet. Let's look at another example to help you understand these ideas. This floor is covered with slate tiles that are 1 foot wide by 1 foot long, or a square foot. There are a total of 380 tiles covering the floor. You decide how many square feet of tile cover the floor. That's right, 380 square feet of tile cover the floor. If we wanted to see if this is correct, we could check ourselves by measuring the width and length of the room and multiply them to calculate the area. The room has a width of 20 feet and a length of 19 feet. To calculate the area, we multiply length times width. You can see that our calculation supports the fact that 380 square feet of tile cover the floor. Perhaps you've heard of the geometric shape called a parallelogram. What exactly is a parallelogram? A parallelogram is a four-sided figure in which opposite sides are equal and parallel, and opposite angles are equal. It's not difficult to find the area of a parallelogram. All we need to measure is the length of the base and the height and multiply them. In this wooden parallelogram, the length of the base is 10 centimeters and the height is 6 centimeters. The formula to calculate the area of a parallelogram is area equals base times height. So 10 centimeters times 6 centimeters equals 60 square centimeters. It's also interesting to note that two equal-sized triangles can fit inside a parallelogram. You decide. What's the shape of this piece of cake? That's right, it's a triangle. Triangles are three-sided geometric figures. Some triangles, called isosceles triangles, have at least two sides that are the same length. Other triangles, called right triangles, have two sides that form a 90-degree angle, also called a right angle. As with parallelograms, it's not hard to calculate the area of triangles. The area of a triangle is half the area of a parallelogram. So the formula to calculate the area of a triangle is area equals 1/2 base times the height. To calculate the area of this particular triangle, we measure the base to be 6 centimeters and the height to be 10 centimeters. So, in our formula, the area equals 1/2 times 6 centimeters times the height of 10 centimeters. This results in an area of 30 centimeters squared. During the past few minutes, we explored perimeter and area. We began by learning that perimeter is the distance around a figure or object. We learned how to measure and calculate perimeter. Next, we defined area as the amount of square units a figure or object covers. Area of a rectangle and square can be calculated by measuring the length and width and multiplying those measurements. Next, we explored the nature of parallelograms and the process of how to calculate the area of parallelograms by multiplying the length of the base times the height. The last thing we discussed were triangles. We learned how to calculate the area of triangles using the formula area equals 1/2 base times height. So, the next time you need to calculate the perimeter of a room, find the area of a rectangle, square, parallelogram, or a triangle, think about some of the things we just learned. You might look at the world around you a little differently. Fill in the correct word to complete the sentence. Good luck, and let's get started. Number 1. Is the distance around a figure or object? Number 2. This square with sides of 10 centimeters has a perimeter of centimeters. Number 3. The area of a rectangle is calculated by multiplying length times. Number 4. This figure is called a. And number 5. The area of A is half the area of a parallelogram.